It all started on what should have been a normal Tuesday afternoon. The sun was out, kids were riding bikes, and I had just gotten back from the store when I noticed something strange out front. Two guys in security uniforms standing by my mailbox. At first, I figured it was just a local patrol, maybe checking for damage or stolen packages. But when I got closer, I saw them yanking the door off my mailbox like it owed them money. No badge numbers, no ID, just walkie-talkies, fake patches, and way too much attitude. They claimed they were with the Neighborhood Enforcement Unit, part of some new HOA regulation. Funny thing is, my neighborhood doesn't even have an HOA. I tried to talk to them calmly, just to figure out what was going on. But they kept barking orders telling me to step back and that I was interfering with property enforcement. That's when it clicked. These weren't real officers. These were just two guys playing dress-up, thinking they could intimidate folks around here. What they didn't know was that my older brother, an Army vet, had just moved in with me a week ago. And let's just say he doesn't take kindly to fake authority or threats. The moment he stepped out and saw what was happening, everything changed. These so-called HOA cops suddenly realized they'd picked the wrong house, on the wrong street. But it wasn't just about the mailbox anymore. It was about the lies, the threats, and the fact that they'd done this to others in the neighborhood too. My brother wasn't about to let that slide. And just when it looked like things were about to cool down, let's just say what happened next had everyone on our street grabbing their phones and hitting record. My brother didn't say a word at first. He just stood there, arms crossed, eyes locked on the two guys. He served 2 tours overseas and has this presence that makes people instantly rethink their choices. The fake HOA enforcers definitely felt it. They froze, probably trying to figure out if they should run, bluff harder, or pretend it was all a mistake. But it was too late for pretending. My mailbox was lying in pieces, and one of them still had a wrench in his hand. I asked again who sent them, what HOA they were with, and why they thought they could just start destroying people's property. The taller one mumbled something about community standards and resident compliance. But again, no names, no paperwork, nothing official, just buzzwords and fake confidence. That's when my brother calmly asked to see identification. They hesitated, then said they left it in the truck. Classic. We started getting curious looks from neighbors. A few even stepped outside to see what the fuss was about. Turns out these guys had been making rounds all weeks, slapping phony notices on doors, issuing fake fines, and scaring older residents into thinking they owed money. One neighbor even paid them $100 just to avoid legal action. That made my blood boil. These weren't just pranksters, they were scamming innocent people and using intimidation to do it. My brother motioned for me to start recording. The two guys didn't like that at all. One tried to walk off, but my brother stepped in front of him, calm but firm. He made it clear they weren't going anywhere until they explained themselves. And while I held the phone steady, neighbors started pulling out their own phones too. You could feel the shift. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was about to become a moment no one on this street would forget. The taller fake cop finally broke the silence. He said his name was Officer Daniels, but the way he said it didn't sit right. My brother raised an eyebrow and asked what agency he was with. The guy shifted, then said Neighborhood Compliance Division. That was the moment we knew they were making it up as they went along. There's no such department here, and the uniforms? Not even close to anything real, just black polos, with iron-on patches and walkie-talkies that weren't even turned on. Then the shorter guy, who hadn't said much yet, started to look nervous. He kept glancing down the street like he was waiting for someone, or maybe hoping someone would bail him out. My neighbor, Mr. Lopez, walked up at that point. He's a retired sheriff and had seen enough. He leaned in and asked to see their credentials too. They refused again, saying everything was handled through the HOA board. But here's the kicker, we don't have an HOA board. Haven't for years. The whole thing dissolved after a lawsuit over misuse of funds. So these guys weren't just pretending, they'd actually done homework. It's just enough to be convincing to the average person. As the crowd grew, people started speaking up. One woman said they threatened to tow her car for being non-compliant. Another said they forced her teen son to take down a basketball hoop, saying it violated visual harmony standards. These weren't isolated incidents. This was a pattern, a scam, and we were now staring at the two who'd been running it. Right in the middle of our street still, the two imposters refused to admit anything. They stood their ground, arms crossed, clearly hoping the crowd would get bored or back down. But we weren't going anywhere. Not this time, especially not with my brother keeping watch. And then, down the street, a black SUV pulled up slowly, deliberately. That's when things took another turn we didn't see coming. The black SUV rolled slowly down the street, its dark-tinted windows reflecting the curious faces gathered on the sidewalk. Everyone's eyes followed it, a mix of unease and anticipation hanging in the air. The two fake HOA guys suddenly stiffened, exchanging quick, nervous glances. It was clear whoever was inside that vehicle was someone they feared or at least respected. My brother tightened his jaw, stepping slightly forward, ready for whatever was about to come. The SUV stopped a few feet away and the driver's side window slowly rolled down. A man in a sharp suit leaned out, his expression unreadable. He spoke in a calm, authoritative tone, asking what was going on. The imposters tried to spin a story about routine neighborhood checks, but the man wasn't buying it. His eyes swept the growing crowd and then landed on the mailbox wreckage. The angry neighbors, the phone cameras recording everything. There was no way this was routine. For a moment, tension cracked the quiet street like a lightning bolt. The man said something that made the two fake cops exchange alarmed looks. Whatever it was enough to make them suddenly nervous, even scared. They started mumbling about misunderstandings and miscommunications, but no one believed them. The crowd pressed in, sensing that this wasn't just a simple argument about a broken mailbox, it was something deeper. Something that had been brewing under the surface for weeks. My brother's calm intensity never wavered. But inside, I could feel the adrenaline building. The neighbors weren't just watching anymore, they were ready to stand with us. Phones were out, voices were rising, and the imposters were trapped. Then, just as the suited man began to speak again, one of the fake cops made a sudden move, something that sent the whole scene spinning into chaos. The moment was about to explode, and no one knew what would happen next, just as the tension hit its peak. The shorter imposter suddenly lunged toward the black SUV's driver's side door, trying to slam it shut. The suited man reacted instantly, stepping back with a sharp look that told everyone this wasn't the first time he'd dealt with chaos like this. But the quick move sparked something bigger. Neighbors gasped, phones zoomed in, and my brother moved faster than I could follow, intercepting the guy before things got out of hand. The imposter struggled, but quickly realized he wasn't dealing with an easy target. Then the real shock hit. The suited man pulled out a badge of real law. Enforcement badge and announced he was with the county sheriff's office. Suddenly, the entire scene flipped. The imposters went from cocky and confident to rattled and cornered. They weren't just playing pretend cops anymore. They were now facing real legal consequences. My brother tightened his grip on the imposters. Armin spoke calmly but firmly, telling him to stay put until the sheriff's deputy finished questioning them. But here's the twist no one saw coming. While the deputy focused on the two fake cops, a group of people who had been quietly watching from across the street suddenly stepped forward. They weren't neighbors, they were private security contractors hired by a local HOA that had recently tried to re-establish control over the neighborhood. Apparently, those fake enforcement guys were part of a shady scheme working with the HOA's backers to intimidate residents into paying fines and signing new contracts. The plot thickened, even more when one contractor admitted on camera that they'd been told to send a message to anyone who resisted. The fake HOA cops breaking mailboxes wasn't just vandalism, it was intimidation on a whole other level. The quiet neighborhood was now exposed as a battleground between a corrupt HOA faction and the residents fighting back, with real law enforcement caught right in the middle. And just when we thought things couldn't get more complicated, a phone call crackled through the deputy's radio. There was another report of similar fake cop activity down the road. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. As the deputy radioed for backup, the two fake HOA enforcers stood there, completely exposed. The crowd around us was growing bolder, voices rising with frustration and relief. My brother didn't waste a second. He stepped forward, his calm but firm voice cutting through the noise. He demanded a full explanation of why these imposters were harassing residents, breaking mailboxes, and scaring families into submission. The deputy nodded, promising to get to the bottom of it and take the proper legal action. Then, something surprising happened. The man in the suit, who introduced himself as Deputy Harris, shared that this kind of scam wasn't new. He'd been tracking a network of fake enforcement groups targeting neighborhoods across several counties, all tied back to a corrupt property management company trying to force homeowners into paying inflated fees. It wasn't just about intimidation, it was a calculated, illegal scheme to squeeze money out of people who trusted their community, just when it felt like justice was finally starting. One of the fake cops' face, pale, now suddenly broke down and confessed on camera. He admitted they were hired by an HOA faction desperate to regain control after losing their legal battle. Their goal was to scare residents into compliance and force new contracts. That confession sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. The people we thought were protecting the community were actually the ones tearing it apart. But the real twist came as the deputy prepared to arrest the two imposters. A loud rumble echoed down the street. More black SUVs rolled in, this time filled with men in suits and security gear. It wasn't more fake cops. It was the very HOA faction behind the scam, showing up to intimidate us in person. My brother stepped forward, ready to stand his ground once more. The battle for the neighborhood wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The arrival of the HOA faction's men in suits was intimidating, but the community had already rallied together. With my brother standing firmly at the front, neighbors surrounded us, their faces determined. The sheriff's deputy stepped forward, making it clear that any attempts to intimidate or harass residents would not be tolerated. The fake enforcement group was officially under investigation, and real law enforcement was now fully involved. In the days that followed, the two imposters faced charges for trespassing, vandalism, and fraud. The HOA faction's shady dealings were exposed, leading to a formal investigation into their illegal tactics. Several neighbors who had been scared into paying bogus fines received full refunds, and the community came together to rebuild trust and safety. What started as a broken mailbox turned into a wake-up call for the entire neighborhood. It reminded us how important it is to stand up against deception, especially when it comes disguised as authority. My brother's military background wasn't just about strength, it was about courage, discipline, and protecting the people around him. That day, those values helped our community push back against corruption and fear. Looking back, it's clear that unity made the difference. When neighbors support each other, no fake cop or shady HOA can hold them down. The whole experience was a powerful reminder that standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, can change everything. So if you ever feel like someone's trying to use fake power to push you around, remember this story. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to speak up and the strength of a community ready to stand together. Because in the end, truth and justice have a way of coming out on top.